Madeline Rivera is live in Washington. Hi, Maddie.
Hey, good morning, Carly and Todd. Special counsel Robert Hur says some of these materials included documents about military and foreign policy in Afghanistan. They were found in a badly damaged box in the president's Delaware garage, surrounded by household items. Nevertheless, Hur did not bring criminal charges against the president because he would, quote, likely present himself to a jury as a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. The president, looking to quell this political firestorm, defended his mental fitness at a news conference Thursday.
I'm well-meaning, and I'm an elderly man, and I know what the hell I'm doing. I've been president, and I put this country back on its feet.
But in that same news conference, the president mistakenly referred to Egypt's president as the president of Mexico.
No. Initially, the president of Mexico, Sisi, did not want to open up the gate to allow humanitarian material to get in.
The president's age and mental capabilities are some of his biggest vulnerabilities as he seeks a second term. But one Republican lawmaker questions whether the president is even fit to hold office now.
President Biden needs to be charged, or he needs to be removed from office under the 25th Amendment. There isn't a middle ground here. It's one or the other. You either have to prosecute him or he has to be removed under the 25th Amendment. That's why I sent this letter.
Meantime, former President Trump says the Justice Department should drop the charges against him in his classified documents case, given Hur's decision not to charge President Biden. Hur says there are distinct differences between the two probes, with Trump allegedly refusing to turn in materials and enlisting others to destroy evidence. President Biden is hosting the German chancellor this afternoon before leaving for Delaware. He will likely face more questions about this report. Carly and Todd.
All right, Madeline Rivera, live for us in Washington. Maddie, thank you so much. Let's bring in Mark Smith, who is the constitutional attorney and former member of President Trump's transition team. Mark, good morning to you. What do you make of these findings by Robert Hur not to recommend charges? And he based it on the fact that President Biden could be sympathetic to a jury and they would find it difficult to convict.
Well, big picture, this was absolutely a terrible day for the anti-Trump lawfare movement in America. The fact is that this special counsel, appointed by the Biden administration, by the way, concluded that Joe Biden should not be charged. When keep in mind that Joe Biden had these documents when he was a senator and the vice president. Now, that is distinctly different than the documents that Donald Trump had, because Donald Trump was the commander-in-chief as the president, and thus he had the constitutional authority to declassify whatever he wanted. That was not an authority that Joe Biden had. So the fact that Jack Smith has indicted President Trump and used the FBI to raid Mar-a-Lago, and yet they're going to let Joe Biden, really get out of jail free card here, it shows a double standard that I think is not going to be lost on anyone, that this Department of Justice through their special counsels is helping the Democrats and Joe Biden, and they're hurting Donald Trump. That's not how justice is supposed to work, and that is certainly not how justice appears to be going right now, with the distinct disparities between how these two cases are being handled.
Sticking with that line of thinking, Mark, I argue that if the DOJ really considered this serious, they would have charged Joe Biden regardless of his incapacity, regardless of his mental fitness, regardless of all those arguments that Hur made in his report. And I think, Mark, that should clear Trump under equal application of the law. Do you agree?
I do, Todd. If you think about it, it really doesn't matter that Joe Biden today has mental issues. What matters, at least for the purposes of the law here, what matters is at the time that he was engaging in these alleged crimes, he had his mental prowess intact. Right? So it doesn't matter what he thinks about today when it comes to this crime. It's what was he thinking? And the special counsel report, Todd, specifically says that they found that Joe Biden willfully violated the law. He willfully kept these classified documents after he left office. So I agree with you. This double standard of justice is going to stand out not just politically, but I think legally, because keep in mind that Judge Cannon down there in Florida has really been looking carefully at this Jack Jack Smith prosecution of President Trump. And this, I think, is only going to help her or cause her to look more carefully with greater scrutiny of what's going on there in the Jack Smith case against President Trump.
Yeah. Well, things really escalated overnight because now Merrick Garland has been formally asked to explore invoking the 25th Amendment to remove President Biden from office. What does he do with that request? Where do you see that going?
Well, I think the reality is that Merrick Garland has demonstrated, unfortunately, himself to be essentially a lawyer for Joe Biden. That is the harsh reality here. And I don't think a request to the Biden Department of Justice to look into the 25th Amendment is going to go anywhere. So if anyone were interested in exploring that question, it would likely have to be Congress. But I seriously doubt that anyone in the Department of Justice is going to do anything that would hurt the Biden reelection campaign. There's just no evidence based on what we've seen over the last several years as to how this DOJ treats, again, Democrats, Joe Biden, versus how they treat Donald Trump and Donald Trump's associates. Totally different standards of justice. And I don't think we'll see anything different when it comes to this question about Joe Biden's mental health and the 25th Amendment question.
I'm glad you said the word associates, because there's been a lot of talk, a lot of analysis about what happened over the last couple of hours. One thing you're not hearing a lot about, Joe Biden's ghostwriter. Out of all of this, the failure to charge that ghostwriter who literally destroyed evidence upon learning of the special counsel investigation, to me, Mark, is the thing that hurts Jack Smith's case against Trump the most. 30 seconds to you.
I think that's right. And again, keep in mind that the documents that Donald Trump had as the former president, commander-in-chief, were held at Mar-a-Lago, where it was surrounded by Secret Service agents protecting President Trump. In contrast, Joe Biden had these documents apparently in a garage with old cars. So clearly, the way these things were being treated by Donald Trump versus Joe Biden was a lot more careless, and yet he's not being charged, but Donald Trump is. Two standards of justice. It's not appropriate for America.
Yeah, and then there are, of course, the political implications of all of this. The cover of the New York Post says in big, bold letters, elderly man with a poor memory, a quote from these Jack Herr findings, or Robert Herr findings. And it's not just Americans who are seeing this. It's also everybody in the world, including bad actors. And that may be one of the most concerning parts of it all. Mark, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mark. Great insight.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.